Hi, my name is Anna-Marie Piccarello, and I'm going to be giving a book review on Edes by Desmond Cantolini. So this takes place in Budapest, just after World War I, where the city is occupied by Romanian troops after having undergone two brief social revolutions. So the novel focuses on the pilot of a young peasant girl who comes to work as a maid for the Vizzies, which is a self-absorbed middle-class family, and they're struggling to maintain their social status in a changing political climate, and a lot of this is taken out on the new maid, Anna Edes. So the story begins with a short chapter on the flight of Bela Kun, which is imagining the revolutionary leader piloting an aircraft, and his pockets are stuffed with pastries and jewels, and waving and grimming to the crowds below him, and then it just shoots right into the plot. So the novel after that is set to begin in 1919 with a return to life somewhat as usual, where government bureaucrat Colonel Vizzi and his wife Angela live. The Vizzies are not ready, and they do not appreciate the idea of a classless society. Then this movement is being pushed in their area due to the communist movement. Some things return to normal by their standards after this revolution, but things are a little bit different. And one of Mrs. Vizzi's major concerns is one of her current maids she views to not be dependable, but Mrs. Vizzi has a servant problem. So she is never able to hold a maid for more than 6 months, and a lot of this is due to her taking out sort of her other problems on the maid, as this having a maid is seen to be one of her main purposes, as she's not really involved in much else, and because she views herself as superior, she invokes a lot of the hatreds that she is feeling towards the maid. So Anna Edes actually becomes her new maid, and she's a teenager from the countryside, and she offers a good mix of intolerance and obedience, and she's able to do mostly what is required of her and meet with Mrs. Vizzi's demands. So the book really highlights 2 points. First, when the Vizzi's nephew, Yanzi, seduces Anna, and when the Vizzies are away for a few days. And the second is the double murder of the Vizzies and the ensuing trial. So just to dig into this a little bit, Anna is very vulnerable, very passive, a little bit, I'm not going to say optimistic, but a little bit naive, and she's told that the work she's doing isn't always satisfactory, and this is really a lot to that Mrs. Vizzi does, just to sort of as she's viewed as inferior. So Ms. Vizzi does this a lot in a sort of condescending context. It seems a lot to me as I went through this story that there are a lot of things going on, and it was a little bit hard to follow. It seemed as if the author didn't know exactly what direction he wanted the book to go in, but it does offer an appealing read to some readers, in the sense that it is detail oriented, and there are a lot of simple things that are a little bit more analyzed. So I thought with regards to that, it was a little bit more interesting. But a lot of the book, I would say, was more reared towards the Anna Edes's experiences, which I thought were a little bit more valuable to the plot. She was the most in-depth character, or what the book focused on. I mean, of course, the book is titled Anna Edes, so that makes sense. But frustratingly, Anna is never really allowed to come to her own viewpoints. In a sense, she doesn't really have a say. She's more of a tool used by Mrs. Vizzi, and she kind of just lets this happen, and she views this as her place. She's a very sympathetic character. We sympathize with her throughout the story, and many of the other characters aren't really dug into as deeply, as she just seems to be this pitiful character throughout the story who does as she is told. I'm not quite sure of the development of her throughout the story. I think that she is more used as a symbol to sort of depict the relations between the proletariat and bourgeoisie class. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the characters. Miss Vizzy, the Vizzies in general are victims to the Reds, so they view themselves as victims to this social movement because, of course, they always had a higher societal standings as being part of the higher class. Anna means to be sweet, but she is underappreciated, taken advantage of, very gullible, very naive. She doesn't understand social cues. She's really on her own. She doesn't really have too much of a familial associations. Miss Vizzy has an attachment to control, anxiety regarding a lot of things, and Yanzi targets lower women or women who are more naive or lower classed, and he's viewed as more of a playboy, and he also has a brother who's like a World War I casualty, and that's talked a little bit about throughout the story. I'm going to go into some quote analysis because there were some quotes that I did find impactful during my read. So starting off, "You are the new girl. What's your name? What's your family name? What's your father's name?" So when Anna came in, they were questioning her a lot to see her background, and in a way it was sort of condescending to pinpoint her relations as to her worth. And this is also another point I'd like to make with a lot of women during this time, is that they weren't viewed in terms of their self-worth or what they do, more so towards their associations, as they were more objectified during this time period, not really having their own identities or worth. Another quote, "The disappointment and amazement slowly faded from her face and gave a pleasant sense of expectation. Once again, she has cast her eyes over her. She didn't look like a peasant." So this is the gaze of Mrs. Vizzy when she looks at Anna, and I just thought it was interesting how she said she doesn't look like a peasant, as if Miss Vizzy wanted her to be a peasant in a way so that she can feel superior. Another interesting quote, "Anna let him. A pleasant warmth began to ride within her. It was love. She knows she was being embraced. Back in the village, the boys had often caught her up and touched her breast for a joke." This quote is sort of during Anna's affair, and I thought it was more interesting because she is so naive to think it's love, because she is so underappreciated, that she thought that interaction was love, which in my opinion, not so much, but I did think it was interesting how she was so convinced and like, oh my god, that to me was pretty interesting. But my overall thoughts on the book is I did think it was difficult to read and follow just due to the connotation of the characters. I was a little bit confused at time where the book was going or what the main plot was. There seemed to be a lot of things going on throughout the book, so I just kind of had trouble putting the holistic plot together. I didn't really personally enjoy the book, but it is an interesting read overall if you are more interested in the fictional side of historical events or character interaction rather than nonfiction interaction. But I overall didn't really enjoy the book. That's just my opinion, but I hope you enjoyed this book review, and thanks for watching.